Absolute honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker. Amy Weaver is the Executive Vice President and General Counsel at Salesforce. A graduate of Wellesley College and Harvard Law School, Amy started her legal career as clerking for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and then she went on and she was a legislative aide to a member of the Hong Kong Legislative Council. She then went to private practice and spent several years at Cravath and then later at Perkins Coie. After several years in private practice, she then went and explored the in-house world. And she was first Vice President and Deputy General Counsel at Expedia. I love it, I always use Expedia. and then she went on to be the Executive Vice President and General Counsel at Univar. In addition to overseeing global legal and corporate matters at Salesforce currently, Amy is also active in a number of causes. Some examples include she was on the board of advisors at Europe, which I looked up, and it's an amazing nonprofit organization that helps women. Is it women or people? I forgot. People. It's like people go from poverty to professional careers in sometimes a year. So I thought that was amazing, and it made sense why it was called that. So I wanted to share that so you guys look it up and support them if you can. She's also a lifetime member of the Council on Foreign Affairs. In 2015, Amy was selected as one of the top 50 most powerful women in technology by the California Diversity Council. And you have tons of other good stuff in her bio that is in your booklets. So we can all agree, right, that Amy's career is an example of a truly successful legal career. It is the type of career that will serve as an inspiration for many law students, particularly women, young attorneys, for I'm sure decades to come. But I think perhaps most importantly, Amy proves that impact and dedication to social justice is not really dictated by your external circumstances, where you work. Do you work for a public interest organization? Do you work for a big law firm? Or do you work in a corporate department? True impact simply comes from a passion to improve the world and a real commitment to serve. You can fight for social justice from anywhere, including a career in big law or at a corporation. You just have to want to do it and make time to do it. So in the last month, I've been emailing a lot with Amy, and we are never really in San Francisco at the same time. But in all our emails, I have seen that she spent much of the last month actually working on issues that are related to fighting discriminatory legislation in Georgia and North Carolina on behalf of Salesforce. She also, in addition to all the good work she was doing last month, she was like, I emailed her a few days ago, and I got this out-of-office email that says, I will be in London until April 1st. And I'm like, oh my God. I know she didn't forget about us. So she flew in this morning to come to our events. So in all this time, with all these obligations, in this last month that I've been emailing with her, she's always been responsive. And you all heard about responsiveness from everybody today. So this is the last time you're going to hear it. So if the GC of Salesforce, with all these things that I talked about, can be responsive to little old me, you guys can be responsive too, because I know you're busy, but you can do it. So thank you for always being responsive to me and truly kind and truly humble. It is truly an honor to have you here.
Niki, thank you for this very, very nice introduction. Now, I need to warn all of you that tonight's speech may not be exactly what you were expecting. It's going to start with a Latin lesson, and it's going to end with a homework assignment. And if you this would be a very good chance to grab another drink, find a chair, that many of us were taught in first-year contracts is the following. Cessante ratione legis, cessat ipsa lex. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to call on anyone and ask you if you remember that. This translates as, if the reason for a rule of law ceases, the law itself should cease. Now, this is important. Remember I said there was going to be homework. So I'm going to say it again a little bit differently. If the reason for a rule no longer makes sense, you have to get rid of the rule. Now, I've been thinking about this as I've been hearing that all of you heard today about a lot of good advice about the workplace. So what I'm going to tell you about is some bad advice that I think is given out. In each case, the bad advice is given because people encourage new entrants to the workforce and tell them that they can succeed only by doing things exactly the same way that they've always been done. Now instead, we need to apply the contracts principle. And when you're given advice, ask, do you really need to change your behavior? Or is it the rule that needs to change? So with that in mind, here are my 3 nominations for workplace rules that I think it's time to get rid of. Rule number 1, don't be too nice. So I once worked with a young woman named Asha. And Asha was bright and hardworking, as well as soft-spoken and unfailingly polite. She was good at her job, which frequently required tough judgment calls and touchy situations. So after we both left that company, I was really pleased when she called me up and asked me to be a reference for a much larger job at a public utility. And when the chief operating officer called me, I eagerly jumped into a list of Asha's attributes. But the executive cut me off. I only have one question, the COO said. Is she too nice for this job? Now, as someone who was frequently advised early in my career not to be too nice, I found the question exasperating. Not only did I believe that Asha was successful in her job because of her polite, gentle nature, but I'm convinced that had she tried to come across as more direct, more assertive, and less nice, she would have failed miserably. Yet somehow the rule is that niceness can be viewed as representing weakness or ineffectiveness, while the opposite is viewed as strength. Now, this issue is particularly critical in the legal profession, where the adversarial nature of law is often used as an excuse for boorish behavior, where the term pit bull can be a compliment and nice can be hurled as an insult. But is this really the best way to run a legal profession? We need to ask whether this long-standing rule is truly helping the business of law. I'm hard-pressed to think of a single time in my career where a negotiation, case, or other legal interaction has actually benefited from rudeness. So, what if we made niceness the rule rather than the career-limiting liability? As we should all know, niceness or politeness is a strength to be cultivated, not a rule, or not a weakness or a performance flaw. So let's strike the rule not to be too nice from the rule book. Okay, rule number 2, don't apologize. So it's recently become commonplace to chide employees, especially women, about starting sentences with the word sorry. Sorry to interrupt, sorry I have a question. I knew this was truly an obsession when even Pantene, the shampoo company, put out a commercial called Sorry Not Sorry, showing a series of women saying, sorry to interrupt, sorry, excuse me. And then even the comedian Amy Schumer had painfully parodied women's tendency to over-apologize on her show. And it's now become commonplace to hear people coaching all employees not to apologize. Now, as much as I enjoyed the Amy Schumer show, and there's no question that some people can over-apologize, I want to make sure we're not falling into the same trap here that we do with admonitions not to be too nice. So applying our contracts principle, we have to ask, what's the underlying reason for the rule not to apologize. If it then makes you look weak, then we're focusing on the wrong end of this rule. After more than 2 decades in law and business, I've got to tell you, the biggest problem facing companies isn't employees who might apologize too much. It's other employees who fail to apologize and take responsibility for their actions. So let's change this rule. Rather than spending our time and energy counseling employees not to apologize or worrying about whether we start a sentence with sorry, let's focus instead on encouraging all of our employees and ourselves to show strength by truly apologizing and taking responsibility. Rule number 3, you must be Rebecca, you must be Robert. Okay, this is going to take some explanation. About 18 months ago, the Atlantic Monthly published an article called The Confidence Gap. The article posits that a common feature holding women back at all levels is a lack of confidence. It's an intriguing premise, and I thought that the article was both provocative and insightful. But one anecdote in the article continues to trouble me. It tells the story of 2 20-something employees, Robert and Rebecca, and how their work styles differed. To summarize the article, Robert was outgoing and brimming with confidence. Within months of starting his job, he was dropping by his manager's office spontaneously to bounce ideas around, make pitches, and share his thoughts. If his manager shot down his ideas, he'd shrug it off. He'd be back in a few days with more. Rebecca, on the other hand, who had been at the company longer, still made appointments to meet with her manager, always with a prepared issues list. Unlike Robert, she tended to be quiet in client meetings. She was busy taking notes. And she didn't blurt out her ideas. She wrote them up with a detailed analysis of the pros and cons. Now, the story continues, but the punchline is not surprising. The manager ultimately expected Robert to succeed. Rebecca, on the other hand, she'd be respected, but without the higher salary, additional responsibilities, or better title. The not-so-subtle takeaway from the article is that Robert's behavior leads to success. Rebecca's does not. The rule, then, is that to succeed, Rebecca needs to be Robert. Now, there are a lot of problems here. First, I don't believe that encouraging employees to conform to a single way of behaving is the best option for women, or for men, or for their employers. We need a diversity of people, personalities, and talents. Imagine a workforce filled only with Roberts, or a workplace filled only with Rebeccas. Nothing would get done. And I can't imagine a worse place to be. And importantly, while neither rule is sufficient on its own, nor is either rule more critical or more deserving of promotion. An organization that's overlooking the diligent behavior of the young woman described in the article is wasting a resource. The bottom line is that true success comes from authenticity. The men and women I most admire and who have climbed the highest are those who are genuine. This doesn't mean that they can't improve or change changes in their approach. They have individual strengths and weaknesses, but they use those to move forward. Ultimately, being an imposter doesn't work. So instead of mandating that there's only one way to succeed, the new rule is be genuine. So, presented you with my top 3 list of workplace rules for proposed repeal, and the new rules to replace them. It's okay to be nice, take responsibility, and be genuine. So what am I asking from you tonight? This is where the homework comes in. I'm asking each of you in this room to help me change these rules. Being a sworn member, or soon to be sworn member of the bar, brings all of us here a status, a dignity, and a respect that's a powerful platform for change. A platform to make our workplaces and our schools more welcoming and more truly inclusive. So like the three rules, there are 3 short, I promise, parts of this homework assignment. First, I'm asking you to never, ever mistake niceness or politeness lack of strength. And it's not enough to simply stop punishing people for being too nice. Use your power to support courtesy and insist on civility with your employees and colleagues. Most importantly, don't change your own personal standards and values to adjust to a workplace if you don't believe that they respect kindness. Homework assignment number 2. Second homework assignment is to use your personal power to encourage a variety of approaches and personalities in your offices and schools, both Robert's and Rebecca's, in whichever gender they come in. When you're told or coached to conform to a certain style, ask yourself whether that role or style serves any purpose, other than that's just how things have always been done. If there isn't a good reason for the advice, don't take it. And finally, your last assignment tonight, regardless of where you are in your career, from first-year law student to the senior-most partner, focus on discovering your own strengths and the powers that come with them, rather than assuming that you must follow what has worked for others. In retrospect, I think one of the greatest advantages I've had in my career is that I began it in earnest while living overseas. In a city where I wasn't part of the culture, I barely spoke the language. And after spending a year working with a member of the Hong Kong legislature, I compounded this by joining a New York law firm in Hong Kong, where I was generally the only female. And at many times, very pregnant. So in other words, I stuck out in every way. And despite great colleagues, I wouldn't be truthful if I said this was always easy or comfortable, especially as a very new lawyer looking for clues on how to behave and how to model my own actions. However, once I accepted that I was never going to blend in, and there was no chance I was going to be mistaken for one of the guys, I also gained a freedom. And it was the freedom to know that I was going to have to succeed or fail on my own strengths, and not those that necessarily were working for my colleagues around me. This realization has served me very well throughout my career. And I remember years later, back in the States, I was preparing for a tricky negotiation, and a very senior colleague came to me, said to go back into that room, lay down the law, preferably using a few choice words, which he suggested, and whatever happened, not to be too nice. In fact, I still remember the exact phrase was, "Nice isn't going to cut it this time, Amy." So I heard him out, and then indicated to his utter dismay that was no way how I intended to handle the situation. Then I asked him, when was the last time he had sent me into a meeting or a negotiation and I hadn't gotten him exactly what he wanted? That stumped him. The point was, I could succeed when I was doing it my own way, when I wasn't pretending to follow what worked for him. If I had marched back into that room, lay down the law, and cursed, the only thing I can guarantee is that everyone would have burst out laughing. I would have looked and felt ridiculous. But by depending on my own skills, I had the confidence to know I could navigate the situation. So tonight, I am asking you to summon the freedom, especially as you're establishing your career, to be yourself. So as I wrap up my comments, I have to tell you about a book I recently came across while I was packing up to move. I had eagerly purchased this shortly after graduating from law school, and for some reason I can't explain it, managed to save it all these years. It is titled, and I can't make this up, "Play Like a Man, Win Like a Woman, What Men Know About Success That Women Need to Learn." Some of the chapter titles included "Don't Expect to Make Friends," which I think means don't be too nice. "Tooting Your Own Horn," which I'm sure does not include apologizing. And perhaps the most cringe-inducing, "Be an Imposter." Now, the advice in this book may have stood up 20 years ago, and heaven knows I lapped it up. But today, we can no longer accept that success is only attainable by following outdated workplace rules whose meaning may have ceased. We need to celebrate both diversity and true inclusion, which means that none of us should be encouraging others or accepting the advice for women to play like a man, or telling any person, male or female, entering the workforce that there's only one route to the top. I've been struck tonight by the incredible power and promise in this room. Now, as you leave this evening, remember your Latin contracts lesson. Cassante ratione legis, cassat ipso lex. I'm counting on each of you to write the new rule book together. Thank you.